This entry was published on my art journal on Friday the 19th of November, 2010. It's called The Dasher, Playing at Past Times. When it comes to European time travel, my forays generally tend towards the world of the 19th century English Regency era, with its music making, think Paganini, poetry swooning, think Byron, and novel reading, think Jane Austen, Mary Shelley, Fanny Burney. I must admit that there's another side to these times that occasionally sounds somewhat intriguing. No, I'm not talking about the past times I'd have been statistically most likely to have engaged in, legging it up and down freezing cold stairs with cans of hot water, sweating over the cook stove to prepare meals for the middle-class family that employs me for little beyond bed and board and a few pounds a year, or going blind sewing at piecework for the gentry. No, I'm imagining the fascinating pastime of high-stakes card play. Drifting back to courtly Western European society of the 18th century, think King George III, Marie Antoinette, and Alessandro Scarlatti, and the 19th century, there's little other entertainment for a more dashing type of woman. It isn't as though I'd go to work every day or need to devote time to my children or household. Over time, balls lose their luster. A woman who's been on the town for some time, particularly a matron of certain standing, is likely to disappear into a discreet little card room once she becomes ennuyée with the same partners in conversation. Beyond the shops, what is a lady to do with her pin money if she doesn't bet? Of course, one's vowels from play must be paid. Those are debts of honor, of course, and certainly nothing like paying your milliner, mantua maker, or seamstress. Those bills from tradesmen and women can be so provoking. But of course, a lady can always stake her jewels. And if she pawns a family heirloom, there's a good chance her husband will redeem it for her, even if she has outrun her allowance just a bit. In a world of extremely limited transportation, without television, radio, movies, raves, adventure travel, or public restaurants, what is a lady to do? Languid tea at a friend's over the same old gossip, or a cozy little card party with stakes of £1 a point. And if you and your husband practice looking the other way, maybe your current cicisbeo will even stake you at whisk, piquet, or quadrille. With so many forms of entertainment available nowadays, I don't actually play cards in the modern era. Gambling meccas like Las Vegas and Reno have little appeal for me. But just for one evening, I'd adore to shrug into my hoops, tie on my coquelicot ribbons, spread just a touch of that rouge my sister brought me back from Paris on my cheekbones, place the patch called Lover's Kiss just so at the edge of my mouth, and sit patiently while my woman sculpts and powders my hair in the latest chine couchant style. Those diamond-encrusted heels were a little dear, but they make all the difference when it comes to the confidence with which I approach the tables. Tonight, I'm sure my luck will be in. The assemblage, Dawning of the Music, was published on Saturday, the 27th of November, and it's part 2 of a series about a concert that I went to. The first part was called Live from Pollivezia, It's Redwood Symphony. And now, part 2, the assemblage, Dawning of the Music. The assemblage is when the music discovers itself. The term assemblage is not in my music dictionary, but it's the most basic and important part of the communal music experience. Its sense of building expectation makes it my favorite part of concert time. After the pre-concert talk, and long before the concert mistress rises to her feet and calls for attention, the audience is introduced to, or reacquainted with, the players. They stroll on stage, sit down, do a little light tuning, and begin to warm up their instruments and practice the solo bits. This night was a particularly fine assemblage. It formed the base of a fantastical, illusory composition. Like any great work, each instrument enters in her own time. In the case of the assemblage, that arrival is based on absolutely natural timing. Conditions of wind, rain, parking lot perambulation, and the length of the bathroom line each affected the arrival of a player on the scene. He finds his chair, greets his fellows, and begins the ritual of mouthpiece maintenance. She tightens her bow and smooths on the rosin. The music is coming to life all around her. A flute begins to flutter in excitement, then shrieks and suddenly drops down in a rapidly descending scale. Vigorous blasts of tooting brass clear and warm the cold chambers of trumpet, trombone, and French horn. Bows dash back and forth with no regularity of motion, each moving on its own path, creating small crescendos and evolving separate tunes out of the mass of sound. I would recognize these abundantly practiced bits later in the great works, but the sense of the individual's hard-won, repeated effort would be missing. A really great assemblage captures the spirit that came before the bison's skin was stretched taut across the void that would someday emerge as a great kettle drum. It feels the first breath, from the first bow, the duracross, the violin's ancient forebearer, Grandma Rebeck. It is the resurrection of the dawning of music, when a welter of pipes configured itself into a horn. Just for a moment, I wish that I could be recording this. Yet the real joy of this time is that it can never be captured or repeated. The very awareness of anyone's interest in it, as a whole, would compromise the music that emerges on its own. The assemblage is the best piece of all. It is live music walking through the door, unstructured and unplanned. It is the quintessential chance composition. It will never be heard again. It is the perfect jam.
On Springfield Mountain there did dwell a lovely youth, I knew him well. To-Rudy-ay, to-Rudy-oo, to-Rudy-ay, to-Rudy-oo. This lovely youth one day did go down to the meadow for to mow. To-Rudy-ay,
I published a Milk Can Remembers on my art journal on November 29th.
He scarce had mowed
How many days in her day after day, never-ending job did Wilhelmina get up at 3 or 4 in the morning to go out to the barn? The dozen patient Holsteins knew her touch so well. It was a rare day when she had to fix the stanchion in place to keep the cows still. Bucket after bucket filled to the brim were poured into the big metal can. Did she sing Springfield Mountain to them while she worked?
Now Molly had 2 ruby lips, with which the poison she did sip. To Rudy,
or did she maybe whistle the jaunty little air she played on the piano the night before? How many pounds of butter did she make? How many children on her farm, or just down the road in the new town where people didn't have enough land to keep a cow, flourished on that milk? Even the metal remains of the old milk can carry me back through time. On November 17th, I published Time Portal Identification Made Easy. Even experienced time travelers may have difficulty recognizing a time portal when they encounter one. When is a train not just a train? How does a, before the Common Era, BCE, transporter differ from a run-of-the-mill station house? Which alleys lead to Neverland and which only provide the quickest path to the household garbage cans? I recently caught up with Biding My Time, a senior staff member with the well-known time travel service Portal Pilots. Captain Bidawee, as she's known to her colleagues, who consider her a woman ahead of her time, was happy to share some of the characteristics that will help even a newbie observer, such as myself, spot a few portals to add to her personal portal spotter's life list. The captain was just folding up a report from maintenance when I entered the Portal Pilots Millbrae BART station. There's a link in this article back to the Portal Pilots Millbrae BART station in case you missed that one a few months back. Now look around you, the good captain intoned with an expansive gesture. From the outside, you might guess this place is nothing more than a metro station, but you'd be dead wrong. I studied the assorted time travelers waiting in the Common Era, CE, terminal. Clearly, this was not the typical Bay Area rapid transit station. A Roman matron was dangling a squalling toddler who'd clearly traveled way beyond his comfort era over the edge of the escalator hand railing. A medieval monk in the corner was chanting to himself, or maybe into his Bluetooth device, while a surcoated devotee of Joan of Arc, clearly waiting for the next transport back to the Crusades, engaged in a little light sword practice in the corner. I moved gingerly away from the knight's combat zone of choice and offered to buy the captain a beverage. Over a friendly cappuccino latte double foam hold the peas pottage, Captain Bideawee explained some of the spotter's tricks she's picked up over the years. It's like this, hun. Time-friendly transport mechanisms abide by certain rules. She wiped some foam off her metal breastplate and took another long, thoughtful swallow. See, first off, you gotta remember that time is of the essence. I nodded, trying to look like I was understanding the lesson. Then she pointed to a large digital clock on the wall. So you might think that would take you somewhere. I nodded again, actually thinking I was getting somewhere with my studies. So is that clock a time portal? She snorted and choked on her drink. Well, of course that thing is no portal. She studied it for a moment, clearly turning over in her mind the best techniques for instructing the utterly clueless. Fair to say, there are clocks that'll get you where you're going, but that ain't one of them. And why? Can you tell me? I studied the large, ugly gray timepiece in a bemused fashion. No, I suppose it's not. She thwacked one leather-covered knee pad. That's right, hun, 'cause after you stare at that a while, you can't say you had a lovely time, can you? I agreed I could not. But this place, she pointed to the station walls, is a legend in its own time. So, she turned one palm up, indicating the obvious. Here we have an obvious portal. I took another sip of my drink and considered her explanation. I've got an old carriage clock at home. It doesn't run anymore, of course, but I've always had a feeling about it. She thumped her cup on the counter and gave me a broad grin. Now you're thinking straight, girl. That's something that stood the test of time. She unfolded and spread out the report she tucked into the capricious leather bag tied belt-like to her waist. Now look here at the portal types our gals will be inspecting in the area this week. I studied the maintenance engineer's list. Bridge, canyon, ladder, path, alley, creek, standing stones, cave, trail, painting, mirror, clock, train, station house. How many standing stones do you find in the San Francisco Bay Area? She grinned and tapped her nose with a knowing wink. You'd be surprised. I was just about to suggest I buy her another drink when the voice of the gate agent came over the loudspeaker announcing, Time is ripe! The captain jumped suddenly to her feet with a clash of breastplate against the back of the metal counter that resonated throughout the station. Well, hun, there's no time to lose. Time and tide wait for no woman. Good luck with the spotting. Just remember, take your own sweet time. A woman ahead of her time indeed. A few minutes later, she disappeared through the doorway, marked, Time flies, staff only. I was a little disappointed not to spend more time with Captain Biting Time, but time, after all, is money. Stop by http://simpleromantic.blogspot.com. It's simpleromantic.blogspot.com for even more recent updates to this art journal.